Jeffrey Toobin again, reading a story called The Setting Sun by Nate McKowen of the Santa Rita Unit in Tucson, Arizona. And it's a little long, so settle in. My dad's van was gunmetal gray. We had dubbed it the Dutch oven because it had no AC and the windows didn't roll down. The engine sat between the two front seats. A cracked engine cover leaked the type of heat you could smell. Periodically, my dad would have to pull over to pour water in the radiator or else the van would sputter to a stall. If we sat idle too long, the tailpipe backfired, barking at us to get a move on. My dad was homeless. We still spent weekends together every now and then. We called it camping. "Your dad's here," my mom called when his van pulled into the driveway. I tossed my phone on the counter, arms extended as if to say, "See what deprivation I have to endure?" I didn't get service on the other side of the mountain. No doubt there would be 1,000 missed texts when I got back. She would be all drunk at 2:30 and want me to sneak over to her house. I would be camping. I climbed through the side door because the passenger side didn't open, tossed my sleeping bag in the back. I thought about how lucky other kids were who had divorced parents. They could say they were going to their dad's house for the weekend. I couldn't say that. I was going where my dad lived. His house rolled with him, chipped, dented, and gunmetal gray. "Hey, bud," he said, lifting the oven into drive. He appeared almost as defiant as he was. A mountain man beard and long hair framed a face wrinkled by countless hours in the Arizona sun. His skin was cured cowhide. As he drove, his crooked fingers bent around the steering wheel, armored in calluses, and his shoulders hunched forward from a car accident that had crushed his spine when he was younger. Or maybe he was just weighed down by a lifetime of disappointment. "Hey," I said back. The ride out to the valley was quiet. We sat in silence, listening to the rattle of the engine, engaged in a mental tug-of-war, judging how the other felt and imagining what sort of walls had been erected between us over the past few weeks. At the freeway exit that led to the Tucson mountains, we passed a derelict water park. I like to imagine that normal families spent their weekends there. Dads doling out bills so the kids could get ice cream, applying liberal amounts of sunscreen, and the children laughing like they do on commercials. And then everyone would pile into the SUV for a comfortable ride home in the AC, content that life was as it should be. But I could never really know what might have been. The water park was a scar on the side of I-10, and that green water slide that cut through the trees stood like a broken monument to what it was not. Picture Rocks was about 40 minutes outside the city. We headed over the Tucson mountains, and since we always went in the afternoon, the sun blinded us as we rolled over the crest of the mountain. The Saguaro National Monument spread out before us, bathed in dying light, untouched and unspoiled. My heart always lifted at this moment, like the strings of expectation had been cut and all my pressures released, although more likely it was just because the van was going downhill. This part of the trip never failed to make me feel like I was in a Western movie. We were two cowboys riding into the setting sun, leaving the world behind. Maybe this is what men do, I thought. They don't talk about how they feel. They keep their faces passive, a taciturn demeanor. Words are cheap. Life is too complex. After the monument, rows of trailers sprouted here and there along the road. Confederate flags flew proudly in most of the front yards. Picture Rocks reminded me of a bandit town, full of outlaws, outcasts, and those who had denounced the world. This is where I was born, though I had moved to the city long ago. This is where my dad lived. We stopped at the wagon wheel to get some coffee. Once we climbed back into the oven, my dad broke the silence. "How's school?" "All right, I guess." It was my sophomore year in high school, and I had straight A's. No one really pushed me to get good grades. I was deathly afraid of failure. "How's things with you?" He made a sound that was half grunt, half sigh, and we lapsed into silence again. Manly or not, I didn't like the silence. We pulled into the place we were going to make camp for the night, a little patch of desert far away from everything. He started a fire. I dragged 2 boulders to each side of the pit, and we set a rusted grill on top. We ate London broil that night. The musty scent of creosote filled the air. Above, the night sky disrobed and showed us her secret, that she saves only for those who venture outside the city. The stars were brighter than I could ever remember. That's what capitalism does, my dad said. For someone to win, someone has to lose. Even though I wasn't much of an economist, I liked these discussions. I sat with my back straight, just two men talking about the state of affairs. Yup, I said. I shook my head in agreement. It's like a country club, he continued. You're either one of the boys or you're everyone else. When the steak became pieces of gristle on the grill, I asked him a question that I had never voiced aloud. Why do you live like this, Dad? I felt I had a right to know. He considered for a moment. Money's tight, so get a job. Any job I know how to do would leave me crippled in a week, he fidgeted a bit. You know, you sound like them. Then get disability, I told him. I'm not disabled. Neither are half the people on it. He looked me in the eye. I'm not a liar either. Because I too wasn't a liar, I told him how I really felt. What kind of footsteps are you putting down for me to follow in? He got quiet. I regretted it. I regretted saying it immediately. His voice came in a whisper. I've always been honest with you. Never tried to pull the wool over your eyes. I'm sorry you don't like the way I live, but this is how life turned out. This is me. This is God's plan for me, apparently. That made me mad. That's bullshit. Don't hide behind God. If you wanted to, you could get a job bagging groceries or something. He snorted. Bust my ass for $200 a week? I wouldn't be able to get an oil change with that. I make more money selling metal. You sell wrought iron javelina on the side of the road. That's not a job. It's like a gypsy or something. He looked at me hard. A smile cracked through. He laughed. I couldn't help but laugh too. Want to go fishing tomorrow? Sure, I said.